911 with your emergency.
This is Alex Murdaugh at 4147 Moselle Road. I need the police to answer immediately. My wife and child just got badly.
Okay, you said 4147 Moselle Road in Allison?
Sir?
You said 4147 Moselle Road in Allison?
Yes, sir. 4147 Moselle Road.
Stay on the line with me, okay? Yes, sir. Stay on the line with me, okay?
June 7th, 2021. A powerful South Carolina lawyer calls 911 in a panic. His voice trembles as he says the words no father should ever say. My wife and son have been shot badly. When police arrive at the family's massive hunting estate, they discover a gruesome scene. His wife, Maggie, is dead, followed by his youngest son, Paul, whom was also found dead. And standing there in the darkness, covered in emotion, is Alex Murdaugh. At first, everyone feels sorry for him. But within weeks, investigators uncover lies. Then more lies. Then millions of dollars stolen. Then insurance fraud. Then a staged roadside shooting. And suddenly, the grieving husband becomes the prime suspect in one of the most shocking true crime stories America has ever seen. Because the Murdaugh family wasn't just wealthy. For nearly 100 years, they practically ruled an entire region of South Carolina. Prosecutors, judges, police officers, everyone knew the Murdaugh name. But now, that dynasty was collapsing. And prosecutors believed Alex Murdaugh murdered his own wife and son to stop everything from falling apart.
To understand what Alex Murdaugh did, you first have to understand what he was protecting. In the Lowcountry region of South Carolina, a stretch of marshes, rivers, and small towns where everybody knows everybody, the Murdaugh name was everything. For nearly a century, the Murdaugh family had served as the solicitor, that's the local district attorney, for the 14th Judicial Circuit. Alex's great-grandfather held the position, his grandfather held it, his father held it. 3 generations of Murdaughs had run the local justice system. And alongside that legal power, the family ran their own law firm, Peters, Murdaugh, Parker, Elksroth and Detrick, one of the most prominent personal injury firms in the region, built on taking massive civil settlements for everyday people hurt in accidents. The Murdaughs were wealthy, they were connected, they were untouchable. In small-town South Carolina, they were essentially royalty. Alex Murdaugh was born into that royalty in 1968. He grew up watching his father and grandfather wield enormous influence. He went to the University of South Carolina for law school. He married a woman named Maggie. They had 2 boys, Richard Alexander Buster Murdaugh Jr. and Paul Terry Murdaugh. And on the surface, Alex Murdaugh was living the American dream. A sprawled hunting estate called Moselle, a beach house, a prestigious law career, family connections that meant he could pick up a phone and make problems go away. But underneath all of that glittering surface, there was a rot that had been growing for 2 decades.
Around the early 2000s, according to prosecutors and his own admissions, Alex Murdaugh developed an addiction to opioid painkillers, specifically oxycodone. He said it started after a knee injury in college and just escalated over the years. His words on the witness stand, it just escalated and escalated and escalated. To feed that addiction, Murdaugh needed money, a lot of it. And so the man trusted with handling his clients' most vulnerable moments, their car accidents, their workplace injuries, their grief, began stealing from them. He would pocket settlement funds, he created fake bank accounts, he forged documents, he stole from grieving families who had no idea the lawyer they trusted was robbing them blind. Prosecutors later estimated he stole somewhere between $9 and $12 million over the course of his career. And for years, for decades, no one knew, because he was a Murdaugh, and Murdaughs don't get scrutinized.
On February 23, 2019, Paul Murdaugh, Alex's youngest son, 19 years old, took 5 of his friends out on the family's boat for a night on the water. They were drinking heavily.
Paul, by all accounts, was the drunkest of them all. He used his older brother Buster's ID to illegally purchase alcohol at a convenience store. He had a blood alcohol level nearly 3 times the legal limit when he got behind the wheel of that boat. Despite pleas from his passengers to slow down, Paul Murdaugh drove that boat straight into the pilings of the Arches Creek Bridge in Beaufort County, South Carolina. The crash was catastrophic. Several passengers were seriously injured. One of them, a 19-year-old girl named Mallory Beach, was thrown into the dark water and never made it out alive. Her body was found a week later. Now, here's where the Murdaugh family's power dynamics become impossible to ignore. Mallory Beach's mother, Renee, desperately wanted to go to the crash site, but she was told the scene was cordoned off. She couldn't access it. And then, just minutes later, she watched as Alex Murdaugh's father, Randolph Murdaugh III, the former top prosecutor of the entire Lowcountry, pulled up to the bridge and was waved right under the police tape. He just walked through. No questions, no hesitation, while a dead girl's grieving mother stood on the outside. That moment, that gut punch of injustice, changed everything, because Renee Beach called an attorney named Mark Tinsley, and Mark Tinsley started filing documents and asking questions that powerful people in South Carolina did not want answered. Paul Murdaugh was eventually charged with 3 counts of boating under the influence causing death. The Beach family filed a wrongful death lawsuit that would ultimately mushroom into a potential $50 million claim against the Murdaughs. That lawsuit was the sword of Damocles hanging over Alex Murdaugh's head, because satisfying it would require full financial disclosure, and full financial disclosure would reveal that Alex Murdaugh had no clean money left. It was all stolen. The boat crash lit the fuse.
But before we get to the murders of Maggie and Paul, we need to talk about the deaths that came before, because the Murdaugh story is not just a 2-victim story. In February 2018, a year before the boat crash, a woman named Gloria Satterfield died at the Murdaugh family home. Gloria had been their housekeeper for years. She was beloved by the family, or so it seemed. Her death was described as a trip and fall accident at the house. Tragic, accidental, case closed. But here's what actually happened after she died. Alex Murdaugh encouraged Gloria's sons to sue him for her wrongful death, and then steered them towards a lawyer he controlled. A settlement was reached, around $500,000, but the money was never paid to Gloria's sons. Instead, it flowed into Alex Murdaugh's personal accounts. He stole the wrongful death settlement from his own dead housekeeper's grieving children. Gloria Satterfield's death has since been reclassified as a homicide by investigators. Whether Alex Murdaugh was directly responsible for her death remains under investigation, but what is undisputed is that he robbed her family after she was gone. Then there's the case of Stephen Smith, a 19-year-old young man found dead on a rural road in Hampton County in July 2015. His death was initially ruled a hit and run, but the investigation has been reopened, and many believe the Murdaugh family had some connection to his death. Alex's older son, Buster, was rumored to have known Smith. The investigation remains open. His mother has spent years demanding answers. 5 people died in circumstances connected to the Murdaugh family. 5. The Lowcountry had been living in the shadow of this dynasty for years, and for years, the shadow had hidden unspeakable things.
By the spring of 2021, Alex Murdaugh's world was unraveling. The civil suit from the Beach family was closing in. Lawyers were beginning to scrutinize the Murdaugh firm's finances. Paul Murdaugh's criminal trial for Mallory Beach's death was approaching. Alex Murdaugh was a man standing at the edge of a cliff, and prosecutors believe he decided to leap and take his family with him. June 7th, 2021. Maggie Murdaugh, 52 years old, Alex's wife, the mother of his children, shot multiple times near the family's dog kennels at their Moselle hunting estate. Paul Murdaugh, 22 years old, their youngest son, shot with a shotgun at close range in the same location. Both of them were killed in the span of minutes. Alex Murdaugh later told police he had been at his parents' house that evening and returned home to find the bodies. He made the 911 call. He said someone had come to his property and committed cold-blooded murder. But here is what changed everything: Paul Murdaugh's phone. Investigators found a video on Paul's phone, time-stamped approximately 8:44 p.m. that night, just minutes before the estimated time of death. In that video, you can hear 3 voices in the background. They were later identified as Paul's, Maggie's, and Alex's. Alex Murdaugh had told police he hadn't been near the kennels that evening. He had claimed he hadn't seen his wife and son in the hours before their deaths. The video proved that was a lie. He was there. He was with them, minutes before they were killed. When confronted on the witness stand about this, Murdaugh finally admitted it. He had been at the kennel that night. He lied to investigators. He claimed he wasn't thinking clearly, that his addiction had impaired his memory. The prosecution's theory was devastatingly simple. Alex Murdaugh murdered his wife and son because their deaths would generate sympathy, delay the financial reckoning that was coming for him, and potentially distract law enforcement from investigating his fraud. He killed the people he was supposed to love most to buy himself time.
In the weeks after the murders, Alex Murdaugh continued to present himself as a grieving husband and father, and for a brief moment, the world believed him. But the investigation was moving, and so was his financial catastrophe. By early September 2021, the law firm had begun discovering the scope of his theft. Colleagues were comparing notes. Numbers didn't add up. Clients were calling, asking about settlement money that had never arrived. On September 3, 2021, Alex Murdaugh was forced to resign from PMPED, the law firm his family had built over a century. His colleagues issued a statement saying he had lied and stolen from them. And then, just one day later, something happened that sounds like fiction. On September 4, 2021, Alex Murdaugh called 911 again, this time from a rural road in Hampton County. He said he had pulled over to fix a flat tire, and a stranger in a blue pickup truck had stopped, gotten out, and shot him in the head. He survived with what was described as a superficial gunshot wound.
Man, I need the ambulance.
You need the ambulance? Okay, are you still in the same location?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Which way are y'all heading? Are y'all driving down the road?
No, ma'am. I'm not.
No.
I got a flat tire.
Okay. All right. Sit tight right there, okay?
Ma'am?
Okay. Yes, sir. We're still here. Hold on. We're dispatching now, giving them information. Where are you at?
It's all over your car.
First, law enforcement searched for the shooter, but within days, the story crumbled. The truth was this: Alex Murdaugh had hired a man named Curtis Edward Smith, a former client and alleged drug supplier, to kill him. His plan was to die by what would appear to be murder, so that his surviving son Buster could collect on a $10 million life insurance policy. Murdaugh believed that if he died by suicide, the insurance wouldn't pay out, so he arranged his own murder. But Curtis Smith's aim was off. The bullet only grazed his head. Alex Murdaugh survived, and then he turned himself in and confessed to the scheme. His attorney's explanation for all of this: a 20-year opioid addiction that had consumed his life, his money, and ultimately his judgment. He was charged with insurance fraud and filing a false police report. He was released on bond to attend rehabilitation. By this point, the charges were stacking up like a skyscraper, and at the very top of that skyscraper, unresolved, hanging like a thundercloud, were the murders of his wife and son.
January 25th, 2023. The double murder trial of Alex Murdaugh officially began. The press called it the trial of the century. For South Carolina, and really for true crime audiences around the world, it was exactly that. The trial lasted 6 weeks. It was televised, it was live-streamed, millions watched it unfold. Prosecutors laid out their case with meticulous precision. The motive: Murdaugh killed his wife and son to generate sympathy and create a distraction from his impending financial exposure. The opportunity: he was with them that night, despite his lies. The means: investigators tied the weapons to evidence at his property.
The key piece of evidence, that haunting kennel video from Paul's phone, was played for the jury. They heard 3 voices, Paul, Maggie, and Alex, minutes before the bodies were found. Alex Murdaugh took the witness stand himself. It was a remarkable decision. He admitted, on the stand, in front of a packed courtroom and a national audience, that he had lied to investigators about his whereabouts that night. He admitted he had stolen from clients and his firm. He admitted he had arranged the fake roadside shooting, but he denied murdering his wife and son. With tears streaming down his face, he said he loved them. He could never have done this to them. He pointed to his opioid addiction as the explanation for his lies and erratic behavior. "I wasn't thinking clearly," he said again and again. The jury wasn't buying it. On March 2nd, 2023, after deliberating for less than 3 hours, the jury returned their verdict: guilty on all 4 counts. 2 counts of murder, 2 counts of possession of a weapon during a violent crime. Judge Clifton Newman sentenced Alex Murdaugh to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Murdaugh stood. He tightly closed his eyes as the verdict was read. His surviving son Buster shook his head in disbelief. It was over, or so everyone thought.
Here's where this story takes yet another extraordinary turn. The county clerk of court overseeing the trial, a woman named Becky Hill, was supposed to be a neutral administrator. Her job was to manage the evidence, assist the jury, and ensure a fair proceeding. Instead, investigators later found that Becky Hill had been talking to the jurors. Not neutral chit-chat. She was allegedly making negative comments about Alex Murdaugh's credibility, suggesting to jurors that they couldn't trust his testimony, nudging them toward a guilty verdict. And why would she do this? Because Becky Hill was writing a book about the trial, a tell-all called Behind the Doors of Justice, The Murdaugh Murders, and a guilty verdict made for a much better book. Murdaugh's legal team raised the alarm and filed for a new trial. In January 2024, a judge denied the motion, but the case went all the way to the South Carolina Supreme Court. And on May 13, 2026, the South Carolina Supreme Court issued a unanimous ruling. They overturned Alex Murdaugh's murder convictions. The court found that Becky Hill's conduct had egregiously attacked Murdaugh's credibility in front of the jury and denied him a fair trial. They also found that the trial judge had allowed too much evidence of Murdaugh's financial crimes, evidence that may have inflamed the jury beyond the question of murder. Becky Hill, for her part, had already been arrested in May 2025 on charges of obstruction of justice, misconduct, and perjury. She had pleaded guilty to criminal charges related to showing sealed court exhibits to a photographer and lying about it under oath. Her book was pulled from publication after plagiarism allegations surfaced. Her career was destroyed. And Alex Murdaugh, a convicted double murderer, was granted a new trial. Now, let's be absolutely clear. Alex Murdaugh is not a free man. He remains in prison, serving a 40-year federal sentence and a 27-year state sentence for his financial crimes. He is not going anywhere. And prosecutors have announced their intention to retry him for the murders of Maggie and Paul. But for the families watching at home, for the people of the Lowcountry who lived through all of this, the overturned conviction felt like yet another gut punch in a story that had been nothing but gut punches from the beginning.
The Murdaugh saga is one of the most staggering falls from grace in modern American history. A family that wielded power for 100 years, that controlled local law enforcement, that shaped the justice system of an entire region, brought completely and utterly to ruin. And the central lesson is as old as power itself. When people are insulated from accountability for too long, the corruption that grows inside them has no ceiling. Alex Murdaugh was not held accountable when he started stealing. He was not held accountable when his son drove a drunk boat and killed a girl, and his family pulled strings at the crime scene. He was not held accountable for years and years of financial abuse against the most vulnerable people who trusted him. And so the theft grew, the lies grew, the desperation grew, until he stood in a field with weapons in his hands and made a choice that can never be undone. The opioid addiction is real. His suffering is real, but it does not explain everything.
Plenty of people battle addiction without stealing millions of dollars from grieving families, without arranging their own murder for insurance money, without killing the people they love most. Alex Murdaugh made choices, evil choices, and the only reason he was able to make them for as long as he did was because a system built on generational privilege let him. The new trial is coming. Prosecutors are ready to go again. The evidence hasn't changed. Paul's phone video still places Alex at the scene minutes before the murders. The physical evidence is still there, and a new jury, presumably without a book-writing clerk whispering in their ears, will have to weigh all of it. The question now, will justice finally, fully, permanently land on Alex Murdaugh?
Richard Alexander Murdaugh sits in an undisclosed prison in South Carolina tonight. He's 57 years old. Even if a new jury somehow acquits him of the murders, he'll die in prison for the financial crimes he admitted to on the witness stand. The Moselle hunting estate has been sold. The law firm his family built over a century has been renamed and restructured, trying to move past the stain of his name. His son Buster carries the Murdaugh name into a world that associates it with shame. And out in the Lowcountry, in the marshes and small towns where the Murdaugh family once walked like kings, people are still trying to process what it means when everything you trusted turns out to be a lie. When the man trusted to fight for justice was the one committing the crimes all along. When the monster was wearing the family portrait. Alex Murdaugh had everything: a name, a legacy, a family, a future. He destroyed all of it. And in doing so, he destroyed people who never had the chance to defend themselves. This has been the story of Alex Murdaugh. And somehow, impossibly, it's not over yet.